I did a video on what Eden Zero does better than Fairy Tail not so long ago, and in that video I said that Fairy Tail's fight are nonsensical, which isn't a hot take or anything, but sometime after making this video, I rewatched some of the fight in Fairy Tail, and I actually liked them quite a bit. Which is crazy because the more I watched the fight, the more I started to wonder where are all those Nakama power-up bullshit people are talking about. So why did I say that in my video? Why did I think that? Was it only because it was the popular opinion about the show, and I just came to believe that? So I decided to look back at Fairy Tail to see if it was objectively that flawed. Guys, I love Fairy Tail, I always have, but a lot of people talk like it's a fact that it's trash. So I wanted to know if their critics were valid, if all the flaws were valid. And no, Fairy Tail wasn't that flawed, and it's absolutely not a objectively bad show. Now understand that in this video we'll be talking about if it's objectively bad, which means it's a fact that it's bad. So if you don't like Fairy Tail for subjective reasons, it's perfectly fine. To see if it's that bad, we will look at the main complaint that people have with the show. But listen here, I'm not aiming to make you like the show more if you don't like it, but to make you understand that what you think is objective flaws might just be your subjective opinion. We will spend a lot of time talking about the fight scene, as it's the aspect that I hear the most complaint about. Then we will look at the character, because for some reason I've heard some people have problem with the character, which is kinda crazy to me because I always felt like the best part of Fairy Tail were the character, but whatever, man. Next we will talk about the world building, cause people love that shit and Fairy Tail doesn't really world build that much. Then we will look at the fan service aspect, followed by the story progression, and finally the whole Fairy Tail is a copy of other anime. You've heard that before. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Okay, so those are the main flaws we hear when people say Fairy Tail is trash. Now let me shine a new light on that. I'll be comparing Fairy Tail to One Piece a lot because if you want to get your point across, you need to compare it with the king. Because if I compare it to other shonen that people are like also mixed about, people will say, yeah, but that shonen is still trash. So I'll use the shonen that most people like and that I think is a really well-rounded, well-made shonen. So that's why we'll be looking at One Piece. So understand that I freaking love One Piece, even if this video might make me seem like a Fairy Tail fanboy. Okay, let's go. The main complaint that we hear about Fairy Tail's fight is that there's too much friendship power up. Like it's literally the first thing that come up when you look up the opinion of people that don't like the show on the internet. I even said something similar in my Eden Zero video. But what is this friendship power up? Well, it's when a character has no hope left but just win through willpower alone. Like when Urza win a fight by one-tapping a giant dragon with her fist. So it's more like a willpower power-up than a friendship power-up, but that doesn't make it any better. But first let's get something out of the way now, okay? Saying I want to protect my friend doesn't mean it's a friendship power-up. You know, they say sometime during a fight in Fairy Tail and other shonen like I will win to protect my friend. And in those cases, they did not win because of friendship. They won because they were stronger or more tactical or more resilient. Saying you want to protect your friend doesn't mean it's a friendship power-up. Like, did Luffy beat Lucci because of friendship? No. Guts from Berserk is mostly angry when he fight. Does that mean he win because he is angry? No. If you like it or not that the Fairy Tail gang value friendship above all things and say it all the time, it's not a objective problem. It's only a matter of opinion here. But what we'll be talking about here is fights that are unwinnable but that they still win through the sheer power of will. Anyway, now let me tell you how many times does the willpower power-up happen in this series. Well, I've rewatched most of the fight in this series, especially the most important one, and I know the answer. Do you? What, 10 times? 20 times? Well no, it only happened around 3 times in the series. We're talking about time where they couldn't possibly win but win anyway. I'm talking about real bullshit fight. Fight like Natsu and the rest of Fairy Tail against Hades are not included cause they really are not bullshit fight. So if a fight is not impossible to win, it's not a bullshit fight if they win. But let's go back at the 3 real bullshit wins that I was talking about earlier. They were fights that are so unbelievable that make you go, that's just a bullshit plot armor, man. And it only happened around 3 times. So let's get that out of the way for people that say it happened way too much, like I did in my previous video. We were wrong. If you don't believe me, go back and rewatch them and tell me that you found more fights that were totally impossible to win. Anyway, the 3 fights I'm referring to are Urza vs Azuma, where she slashed him with her sword thinking about her friends, Urza against Kyoka, where she lost all her sense but win because she's Urza, and finally Urza against her mom, where she punched a dragon into oblivion, which is a lot of Urza. Other than those, the fights were believable from a standard shonen manga perspective. Those are the bullshit friendship power-up fight in Fairy Tail. But here's the thing, can we really say that Fairy Tail is a bullshit show that has way too much friendship power-up win when it only happened 3 times? If your answer is yes, then what about other anime? I mean, friendship power-up also happen in One Piece and other shows. I know that saying it's also in other shows doesn't mean it's okay to happen, but considering that it didn't happen that much in Fairy Tail, and we call it a show with bullshit Nakama power-up, I think it's important to compare with other shows. Cause if Fairy Tail is called bullshit for 3 fights, other shows must be bullshit if it does as much, right? Alright, let's look at One Piece again. I found 2 moments where Luffy come out on top through the power of will alone, without any explanation, and that's just from the top of my head. During the Impel Down arc, Luffy was about to die because of the poison, but you know, he got healed up, which is fine. But it was said in the show that it would take 1 week for Luffy to recover, but through willpower and friendship, he got up in a few hours. This is a willpower power-up if I ever saw one. If you want to argue with me that it's not, then we'll have to argue that Urza fight or not, cause if we're being honest, they're the same. If the poison let you hospitalized for 1 week, why the hell did you get up in a matter of hours? It was willpower. I know it's not a fight, but it really doesn't matter, it's the same unexplained bullshit here. The second moment was the fight against Katakuri. Luffy get destroyed all the fight and then he suffered fatal wound. I repeat, fatal wound. And for some reason, he stay alive. He find a way to see the future a little bit through the power of flashback, and he use a new transformation out of nowhere. Still he get his ass kicked, but somehow he defeat his opponent. No, guys, this is a classic willpower overcome anything, and is exactly what people hate about Fairy Tail. Dude had fatal wound and he don't die. But listen here, in my opinion, the power of will isn't in itself a bad thing. It can make for great emotional moment like the 100 vs 1 fight in Berserk, which is a pretty impressive achievement, almost impossible for a human being. It's the emotion of those moments that are so badass, when Guts fight until he can't no more, when Luffy get up through willpower alone and finish his opponent for his friend, when a broken Urza find the strength to overcome anything that come her way. This is why those moments exist, because they're so inspiring, they're so good, man. But that's only just my opinion, and it's completely understandable if willpower is not enough to convince you. But I still think they're pretty cool. So what's the conclusion on the fight then? Every anime are bullshit for a few moments like those? Or it's okay to happen sometime and they're not all bullshit? I personally think it's not that bad, but you can't have double standard here. Either every anime that does it are shit or not. So if you say Fairy Tail has too much friendship or willpower power up, you have to say that One Piece and other show does too. But okay, I know, some of you would like to argue that Luffy finish up Katakuri through willpower make more sense than Urza one punching a dragon. I mean, living through fatal wound without healing yourself is as much bullshit to me, but I can understand your feeling. One punching a dragon is a bit hard to swallow. But here's the thing, when it happened in One Piece, it is 100% a bullshit out of nowhere Deus Ex Machina. In those fights he stay alive for no reason, but it's not the same case in Fairy Tail. Because those power-ups are in fact explained beforehand in Fairy Tail, and it all has to do with how magic works in that show. It is said that magic is not a miracle. When the spirit flow within us and the spirit flow in a natural connect, the magic will take form. Which means your spirit is your magic, so strong emotion can actually make you stronger, because our spirit is linked with our emotion. So if it is explained before it happened, each time they win through willpower alone, which doesn't happen a lot, it is not a Deus Ex Machina, but it's more similar to a transformation or a superpower, cause transformation are the same type of power up, the only difference is that they are explained. Listen, if Urza's hair would turn yellow or she would have a physical change before winning, people wouldn't mind those fights, cause they would say, oh, it's a transformation, the power boost is explained. But it's still explained in Fairy Tail, so it's just like a transformation. You see, Luffy turning into Snake Man out of nowhere is the same as getting a power-up like Urza did in Fairy Tail's canon. Now if you like transformation better is subjective, cause in itself, they are about the same thing. And before you say it's a deeply flawed system, know that it only happened around 3 times to an unbelievable extent. But sure, I guess intense emotion making you stronger is not as believable as inflating your bone made of rubber to get stronger or using the power of a demon fox in your body. Yeah, I guess Fairy Tail don't make sense on that. Well, if that is the case, I guess real life don't make sense either. Have you ever heard of the term hysterical strength? If not, let me explain. It's referring to real life case where people living hopeless life or death situation get confronted with intense emotion and manage to perform unbelievable feat. Like a mother lifting a car to save her child. A lot of cases like those have happened all around the world. Wait, someone living a hopeless life or death situation get confronted with intense emotion and manage to perform an unbelievable feat? Huh, why does that sound so familiar? So, considering Fairy Tail is a magical anime, then the willpower power-up are just the magical equivalent to hysterical strength, which is a power-up based on real life, so it technically makes more sense than inflating your bone or using the chakra of a demon inside your body. Which is why it's basically like a shonen transformation. You know Super Saiyan, the Gear System, and the Grow Up Gone transformation from Hunter x Hunter? They are all power-up explained within the canon of the anime. Like inflating your muscle with air to make you stronger, sure, but only in One Piece. Will power push your limit higher than you ever thought possible? Sure, only in Fairy Tail. And sometime in real life. And before you say that there's no drawback to Urza's power-up, well no, there are. First, Urza needs to be pushed far beyond her limit without passing out, which does not happen a lot. And she can barely fight afterward. So if Urza push enough and don't pass out, she can defeat really powerful enemy but can barely fight after. And don't forget that she can't do it twice in a row. Which means that the team lose a powerful asset because she's no longer the powerhouse she is, which is a drawback. I think you understand now, right? Urza one punching a dragon or the other 2 fights she won that were a bit nonsensical actually have an explanation. Luffy surviving multiple fatal wounds and getting up from a poison that should leave him hospitalized for a week in a matter of hours? Well, that's not explained. Look at it that way, everybody in Fairy Tail can boost their power through emotion alone, but the only character with enough willpower to one-tap a dragon is Urza. She's basically the Green Lantern of the show. And before saying that having such a powerhouse for your team is bullshit, don't forget that that's pretty much the role of Zoro. Having a powerhouse in your team isn't a bad thing. And yeah, Zoro is the powerhouse of the team. This is literally his only role in the team. If he's not a powerhouse that's supposed to be super strong and defeat almost everyone he fight, he would literally be useless to the team. And again, I can hear you say that Zoro can lose. Well, Urza also lost some fight. But sometimes pushed beyond her limit, she can manage to use an insane magical power. So guys, Urza is just the team powerhouse. So Fairy Tail and the whole willpower win is like any other shonen and is on the same level as One Piece in that case. But Fairy Tail actually explained those wins, which is better, right? And the power up is closer to a real life phenomenon than any other anime. Then it make more sense, and if it make more sense, it's better. Well, in that case at least, because the problem that people have is that they're unexplained power-up. So the fact that it's explained while other shonen don't is actually better, right? Anyway, can we stop on the whole friendship power-up thing, guys? With this misconception out of the way, can we look at Fairy Tail's fight? Their fun fight with every enemy having their own ability, which create for diverse fight like any good shonen should. Say what you want, but you can't lie that some of the character has some pretty cool ability. But I do agree that they are not always the most strategic fight. They're like fun, flashy fight, which is not a bad thing. Look at show with great fight like God of High School, Fate or One Piece, which are mostly fun, flashy fight. Listen, a fight scene on their own, if you take everything away, should first of all be visually entertaining. Then you can add some technical aspect or emotional aspect to make them truly great, but mostly emotion, cause without emotion the fight is worthless, and emotion Fairy Tail does that right. Guys, I don't need to explain, come on, we all know that Fairy Tail is good with emotion, with the character fighting until their last breath, and the music, and the awesome drawing in the manga of Mashima. I mean, just look at fight like Lucy vs Tartarus or Grey vs Silver. Those are really fun and flashy fight to look at with all the emotional backdrop which make them truly great fight. Which is what most shonen does anyway, and I would argue that Fairy Tail does it pretty well for the most part. What, you don't believe me that most fight are emotional, flashy fight? Okay, think of the best fight in One Piece. I'm sure most of you thought of Luffy vs Lucci. But is it not just a super power fist fight? Yes, it is. It's not really tactical, but emotional, which is also what Fairy Tail does. So One Piece, Naruto and Dragon Ball fight are just like Fairy Tail in those aspects. Oh, and before someone tell me that Natsu never lose in Fairy Tail, know that he lose in fact around 5 times in the series. And the series is 500 chapter, while Luffy lost 9 times and One Piece is 1000 chapter. And if we're looking at Naruto, Naruto lost 8 times and the series 700 chapter. So this argument is invalid. Guys, in the end, on the fight scene, Fairy Tail's fight scene are not even bad. It's around the same level of other shonen, and the whole friendship power doesn't happen more than any other show. And even if it would, it's explained and is more like an anime transformation than a bullshit power. Now let's go look at the character. The character are good and fun the same way One Piece character are good and fun, with interesting backstory that explain their value. At least I think they're fun on those aspects. They're well developed character with value, personality and backstory. If you don't like them on those aspects is a subjective opinion. Natsu, Grey and Urza are not objectively bad character on a personality level, cause that aspect is truly a subjective matter. And Fairy Tail character have everything to make their character good. They have distinct fun personality, good backstory and motivation. Sure, they all share the same goal, but so does the Teen Titan and the Avenger. That doesn't mean they're bad character for it. But if you like them is a matter of opinion. A good character is a 3-dimensional character, meaning that they feel alive through their personality and your understanding of their value. And Fairy Tail, like One Piece character, are truly fleshed out 3-dimensional character in those aspects. If you don't believe me, let's just look at a character. Let's look at Urza. She have 100 of armor. Why? Is it just because this is how she want to fight? Did someone teach her that? Did she eat a devil fruit or something? Well, no. It actually has a deeper meaning. It's because as a child she was a slave treated like shit by bad people. So she pick up arm and fight back only to get betrayal and hurt more than the slave owner ever could by her best friend. This made her feel powerless all the time because after this betrayal she felt like anybody could hurt her, even her friend. You see, this level of writing is what makes those characters 3-dimensional. But again, you're free not to like their personality or backstory, but they are not objectively bad character. Listen, if someone tell you that he don't like Sanji because he's a simp, he can think that. Can you really say that he's objectively wrong for not liking him? No, but that doesn't mean Sanji is a bad character. The level of fun and enjoyment you get out of character like the one from One Piece or Fairy Tail where the characters are full of personality is a subjective matter. If you say personality wise that Fairy Tail characters are bad, well, it's not a fact, it's an opinion. But if your beef with Fairy Tail character is that the character don't change and don't go through character arc, well, can we really say that Zoro from the beginning of the show can't be swapped with the one at the end? I mean, except his new power, they're pretty much the same. I mean, the character from One Piece and Fairy Tail have a tiny bit of development, but they mostly use the flat arc for their character, which is completely fine. Flat arc roughly meaning that the character will stick to their own conviction, like Spider-Man or Superman. And don't argue with me that the Straw Hat crew from One Piece has better character development than Fairy Tail. They truly are characters that use the flat arc, which is not a bad thing. So change or no change is a subjective thing, whether you like it or not. A lot of people like Guts from Berserk because his character used the standard character arc, but having characters that stick to their conviction like the one from One Piece and Fairy Tail isn't a bad thing, and it can be equally good. Alright, I agree, the world building in Fairy Tail isn't really that good. It's not that bad, we get a glimpse of what the world is like, but sure, it's not fleshed out. But here's the thing, story doesn't need world building to be good. Saying Fairy Tail is bad because it has mediocre world building is like saying Star Wars Episode 4 is bad because we don't really understand the world of the planet they go to. We get a glimpse of Tatooine, but we don't really understand anything about it. We don't understand where the lightsaber came from, or who were the Jedi, and much more information that were world built in the prequel. But Star Wars Episode 4 is far from being a bad movie, and I don't really think having a lot more world building in those movies would make the movie any better. World building is not always necessary to the story, so it's only personal preference if you like it or not. So not liking Fairy Tail for bad world building is a subjective matter, cause the story doesn't need world building to work. Again, like world building, fanservice is not objectively bad as it is something that can or cannot appeal to fans. If you don't like, let's say, girl losing their clothes as they fight, it's a subjective opinion. Sure, it's a fact that it is unnecessary, but that does not mean it's objectively bad. It's like joke in a story. They're not always useful to the story, but if you like them or don't mind them, it all depends on your taste. One Piece does a shit ton of joke during its fight. I personally don't mind it, I actually quite like it, but if someone say that it take away from the seriousness of the fight, well, it can also be true. Like during the Marineford arc where Ace is about to get killed, you follow Buggy making joke. Sure, some might see it as lightening the mood cause the arc can be a bit heavy, but some might say it make it less serious and take away from the arc. So you see, one objective fact, two subjective opinion. Same goes for fanservice in that sense. The plot progression is the show's biggest flaw, but while it could be better in my opinion, it does not mean it sucks cause the show doesn't have an end goal. I mean, just look at really praised anime like Cowboy Bebop and Gintama where there's no real goal. Those anime are still really good, Gintama being my favorite anime of all time, and there is no end goal. And as much as I like One Piece and Naruto, can we really say that everything that happened in the show truly get them closer to their end goal? Not really. I love that we have something to look forward to in those two shows, but for most of the chapter in those manga, they do things that have nothing to do with the end goal. Like Alabasta being one of my favorite arcs, it wasn't really necessary to bring Luffy closer to the end goal, finding One Piece. It was a detour, sure it was fun, and I'm sure that eventually he'll get help from the people of Alabasta. But it wasn't really a step forward and more a step sideways. And Naruto wants to become Hokage, but there's no real trial to become one, so yeah, it's not like there's real progression here. Listen, I could go on, but I think you get my point here. Fairy Tail would probably be better with an angle, and so would Cowboy Bebop, but that does not mean that those shows are bad. Show can be good even without angle, as crazy as it sounds. Okay, I can't believe I have to say that, but Fairy Tail didn't copy One Piece or Naruto, and it's not just a rip-off of other anime. It inspired itself and made homage to the respective show. Those characters are really similar, but they're not the same at all. And before you say it's lazy, look at One Piece character design. Yeah, those are homage the same way Fairy Tail does it. Yeah, this was probably the dumbest problem I hear people having with the show. Because if you read the manga, you know that it's not a ripoff and that it only made homage. But if you read the manga and still think it's a ripoff, maybe you should, like, I don't know, Google what ripoff is, because it's not. Listen guys, my point is not that you can't dislike Fairy Tail, but that the show is not objectively bad as a lot of people say. It's not perfect, but we tend to use a lot of misconceptional flaw as objective fact when they're more subjective opinion when it comes to describing Fairy Tail. Like not liking the fight in Fairy Tail, alright, but they're not objectively bad. They're about the same level as other shonen. Same for the character and everything I talked about in the video. But hey, in the end, to each their own, but I think this video deserved to be made, as there is a lot of misconceptions spread about the series that needed to be cleared up. Fairy Tail isn't a bad show, not at all. It has a lot of good, hence why it's so loved by so many people. But like everything, it also has some flaw, but Fairy Tail isn't trash. If you enjoyed, don't forget to like and subscribe, it would help a lot. But if you're mad, don't forget that you can leave a mad comment and you can even drop a dislike. Maybe that will make you feel better. Anyway, peace out.